You can never get tired of this. Ben Maller's priceless reactions to real estate TikToks have so many interesting tangents, but there's a few that I believe deserve a deeper look considering the state of the housing market today. Of course, this is not financial advice, but take a look at some of those key moments before I tell you more about it.
Not to buy. 2s, 4s, 6s, and 8s will go back to banks. You cannot compete in this marketplace. 12 units cannot compete with my 300-unit deal in Orlando with a $1.5 million swimming pool, 1,200 square foot facility for health and...
It depends who you're talking to. If the person can only afford a 2, a 4, a 6, a 8, a 10, then that's all they can afford. And yes, you can make plenty of money on it. That's how I built my whole goddamn career in real estate. I started with crack houses, duplex, triplex, fourplex. You get in where you can fit in, because not everybody can afford the $1.5 million pool to swim in. So what is he talking about? Compete. A damn duplex ain't competing with a 300-unit apartment complex that he probably overpaid for in Orlando. I encourage people to go out there, find a duplex, a triplex, a fourplex, a sixplex, a eightplex, a tenplex, because you gotta start somewhere. Everybody doesn't have all these people's money that they threw into the pot like he does. You got what you got. And you gotta make do with what you got and make something of it. That's what I did.
Honestly, whenever Grant Cardone says something like this, people are going to chalk it up to his own financial interest with his institutional investment firm and getting more people to pool their money with him. But perhaps it just stems from a degree of ignorance and disconnect about where most Americans even stand. As house prices consistently rise, especially after 2020, the median house now stands at over $427,000. That means that you'd need to make over $100,000 a year to be able to afford that. And what is that as a percentage of Americans? Well, it's less than a third of the population that makes over 6 figures. Do you see how there's a vast swath of people that are not included in the conversation when Grant Cardone speaks about $1 million swimming pools and fitness facilities at his apartment complexes? And while it's true that even Ben Maller has made a majority of his money in the luxury and commercial real estate market of Florida, at least that's a position he admits he graduated to after starting from the bottom with single-family units and duplexes.
You have to get to a place where you have $5 million in the bank, because you can survive the rest of your life no matter what happens, and your family. You can take care of a lot of people making 6 or 7% of $5 million. When you make that, you have to set that aside and you don't risk it. Then after that, you can start to take risk capital and put it to work.
All right. You know, listen, who the hell is he talking to? How many people can stash away $5 million? There's 400 million people in the country. He doesn't tell you how to get it. He's just telling you, you should. Well, how? What's the story? What's the plan? Anybody on the street knows that. You ask anybody in the street, hey, if you had $5 million, would you be okay? Yeah, I'd be great. Well, of course, because it's common sense. But tell us how to get the $5 million.
I share that frustration. Again, it's that complete divorce from the common man struggles that Kevin O'Leary displays here. And by the way, there's another point that Ben Maller didn't even talk about here. Where does Kevin even want you to put that supposed $5 million? In the bank? Putting that much cash in the bank is about the worst thing that you can do with your money, and if all you're looking for is a stash of money to fall back on, even a tenth of that amount can be enough to live on after investing it in the right place to earn enough of a living income. Putting it in something like the S&P 500 can generate 8 to 10% annual returns, but the even larger point is that it's extremely niche advice to begin with. Someone with $100 million net worth may be able to set aside $5 million and forget about it, but most people will hardly ever even make $5 million in their whole working life. And perhaps that's why advice like that sounds so painfully out of touch with the reality that almost every American lives in. This next example was a window into what that reality is.
Oh no, not this guy again, please.
The only debt we had was student loans, which we were working really hard towards paying off. You know, they end up getting deferred.
Why don't you pay them off?
Well...
Why don't you pay them off? Sure, we'll just write a check and pay them off.
How much do you owe?
His are around $80K and mine are...
So what the hell's 10 grand got to do with it? You owe 80 grand.
It's 10 grand? If she get 10 grand knocked off an $80,000 bill, that's like 12% discount. What's 10 grand got to do with it? It's a lot in her world.
How much have you got in the bank?
We did have about $90K. We had reached the amount that
he's scratching his
head.
head.
Here's the thing, Anna.
He's getting irritated.
$80,000 that you signed up for, and you have $90,000 to pay it, you should pay it.
He's a cuckoo. You got $90,000. You're going to pay back an $80,000 loan. It's probably at a low interest rate and the government's discounting. Shit. You get rid of that goddamn 90 grand you got in the bank, you know what you're left with? Nothing. That 90 grand can take care of emergencies that come up, maybe make a smart investment. Who the hell knows? You're going to give up your whole liquid net worth to pay back a government student loan? That's the most ridiculous thing I ever heard in my life.
Now, I'm kind of conflicted with this one. I don't know if this caller said all she has is 90 grand in the bank. In that case, there's certainly other places where that money could be more productive in the long term. But it's also examples like this where Dave Ramsey's aversion to debt starts to make sense. Debt isn't just a calculation on a spreadsheet. It has an intangible aspect as well. That's because debt can take an emotional and financial toll on you, which is a lot harder for some people to manage. In this particular case, paying off $8 grand of remaining student loans at once may erode a significant part of her liquid cash, but on the other end will also open up space in her monthly budget to live easier. And that's a more psychological impact, which is perhaps a decision that a person in this situation can make. The US Supreme Court last year also struck down President Biden's attempt at a student loan forgiveness program, which means those loans are going to linger on for many years to come unless paid off at once. Obviously, that's not a decision that can be made without complete knowledge of the situation, but it's certainly worth taking into account the intangible benefits of getting the burden of debt off of your shoulders for good.
Tracy Albert and her husband Miles used their savings to buy this 4-bedroom dream home in Riverside, California 14 months ago, but they have not been able to move in, even though they've been paying the mortgage every month.
He just said he wasn't leaving. That was it. Wasn't going to leave the house, barricaded himself in the house.
So who's the guy blocking their way, refusing them entrance to their own home? It's the previous owner.
Do you think that this was his plan from the beginning?
Yes.
Realtor Chris Taylor says he's never seen anything like this in 18 years selling homes.
Every I was dotted, T was crossed, everything that could have been done was done.
Wrong answer, realtor. Go back to Real Estate 101. Better yet, go to benmallen.com, consult with Ben, or better yet, come to our event on October the 7th. And never, ever close anything in real estate. When I say close, I mean press the button, send the money, and release it. Before you do that, you check the property. You do a walkthrough. It's in the contract. You're supposed to do a walkthrough and inspect the property that nobody's there, nothing's there, and it's in the same condition that you bought it in. It's done with residential, it's done with commercial, it's done with everything.
Makes a lot of sense. I think Ben Mallah brings a more grounded perspective to the world of real estate, which proves just the right first step of the ladder for any looking to start. I'd also put someone like Robert Kiyosaki in that camp because he's also an advocate of people getting their own hands dirty and learning about the market from the ground up. That's what sets them up for long-term success. But let me know in the comments if you agree with that approach, because there's no doubt that a lot of people today are left paralyzed into indecision by the different schools of thought out there on real estate investing.